Truth Espresso, Episode 2.
Face it, we all would rather sleep in this morning. That's why God gave us espresso, to kickstart our zombified corpses into hyperdrive. And now, giving your mind and soul the morning shot of truth it craves. This is Truth Espresso with Daniel Minnick.
Well, hello again. This is Daniel Minnick. Welcome to Truth Espresso. If you've listened to the last episode, we talked about 5 tips for before going to college. And if you listen to those tips a little closely, you realize that I mentioned in passing that not all college degrees are created equal. And so we're going to look at some statistics and a list of particular majors from a particular website called careerschoolnow.org. There's a particular article there that lists what it considers the 10 worst college majors for jobs. And so if one major does not equal another major, the market clearly shows that some of these majors are just not very good for jobs. They are not a good return on investment. And so keep these particular majors in mind when you're planning to go to college. Some of these majors might represent your passion, but will your passion translate into something that will actually pay back your student debt and give you a good job? So, as we mentioned in the last episode, avoid the propaganda of choosing a major based on your passion alone. Now, it is excellent. It is something that we all desire if the passion that we have for our major is actually going to pay off in the end. But sometimes if our passion is just something that pleases us but doesn't please other people, then we really need to figure out a way how to major in something that might not exactly be our biggest passion. Before choosing a major, we need to be informed about the market for jobs. You can easily go to Google and search for the jobs that are the most in demand, jobs that actually pay well and provide a good return on investment. But, there could be something in there that you might want to do. Say your biggest passion might be talking, but, you can use talking in something else that might actually be, you can use talking as a means to accomplish something that other people might demand of you, but just merely expecting to be paid to say what you want to say might not be the best idea. So you need to keep in mind how many people there are that pursue the major that you want and compare that with how many job openings there actually are that specifically employ that knowledge. So if there's a particular major that the statistics show that there are 300,000 graduates in that major every year, but only a handful of job openings, then you might want to reconsider being one of the statistics there, graduating with that major, getting that precious degree, but finding yourself unemployable for all those hard classes you took studying for. So we need to look at the supply and demand. If there is a high supply of graduates in your particular major and is a low demand for skills in that major, then you're going to have difficulty finding a related job. If there's a high supply of graduates with that degree and there's a high demand for those skills, then you might have more possibility finding a job, but it might not pay very well. Likewise, if there's a low supply of the degree that you want to get, and there's also not very much demand for the skills that you get achieving that degree, you'd be in the same situation. You might find a job in that area, but it will be a low-paying job. And last but not least, if there's a low supply of graduates with the degree that you're seeking, and there's a high demand for skills, then you are going to find that you will be hounded for work. You might have lots of recruiters calling you and telling you that there is an urgent need for your skills, and I want to tell you that is a very good position to be in. So, without further ado, considering these factors, let's go to see the bottom 10, the 10 worst college majors for job that CareerSchoolNow.org provides us. So, number 10 on the list is social work. Now, social work sounds like one of those things that, you have a very acute understanding of helping people. You feel good about helping others. Now, in fact, there is a very high demand for some of these types of social work. Social work can be involved in low forms of counseling, trying to get people back on their feet, helping kids with dealing with issues of the law. I'm not an expert on all the different areas of social work. Some areas of social work, so-called, can just be involved in very politically one-sided fields. Like it could be dealing with certain social issues of, like, say, transgenderism and so on like that, but I'm not particularly talking about that kind of social work. But all in all, our society really does need lots of people who can help others, and that might be your passion. So with social work, there is a very high demand and a need for this, but there are a lot of people like you who are willing to help others. So when there's a high demand for this degree and a very high supply of people with that degree, it pushes down salaries. Social work might pay anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a year for starters, and the median salary doesn't go up very much from there, because although you have a good heart, there might not be a lot of very intensive skills learned and acquired and needed to perform social work. It's just, all it takes is a good heart and a little bit of knowledge for helping others. So you have to ask yourself, with social work, if the salary is really not your drive, is there a way that you can actually do this kind of social work without getting a college degree? Is a college degree absolutely necessary to go into a social work field? If it's not necessary, then acquiring a lot of student debt to get a degree in social work and then having to compete with other people who actually have those skills without the degree doesn't make your prospects of being able to pay back your loan very positive. So that might be something to keep in mind if you're dead set on going into social work. Number 9, art history. So art history is different from art itself. Art history is a degree in appreciating art and not necessarily creating new art. So the best hope for a job after getting a master's degree in art history might be to be a curator at a museum. And I think I would have to assume that most art history graduates, that is the position that they're gunning for. They would love to be a curator at a museum. But we need to ask ourselves this very important question. How many of those type of jobs are available? How many job openings do we see on monster.com or dice.com or in the local paper begging for a new museum curator? How many of these positions are actually even active? Not only do we ask ourselves how many openings there are for being a curator at a museum, but how many jobs are there right now that are even filled being a curator at a museum? How many people actually devote time to visit a museum? Once per year? Now, of course, if you're getting a degree in art history, most likely you're one of those types of people who are would like to visit a museum more often than once per year. But, for those who are not really fans of art and like to critique and study art, they're most likely to go to the museum once per year. So I would like to suggest to you that getting a degree in art history just might be a waste of time and money. A lot of people, might consider getting this degree because they might think it's easy enough and it would allow them to, say, party in college. But if you're going to party in college, getting what you think might be an easy degree in art history, this might be at the expense of the rest of your life trying to pay back your student loan and not having the money to be able to do that. Number 8 in the list, radio or broadcast communications. Oh, this sounds like an awesome degree. Who has an excellent voice doesn't want to get into radio? I mean, you build your fan list, you would love to, you listen to the radio and you grow up really wanting to be that person who gets to be heard on the airwaves. So this sounds like a degree that's fun, awesome, and prestigious. Well, think about it. How many of your fellow college students might be getting this degree? Perhaps many? If you have a lot of friends that are getting a radio broadcast communications degree, how do you match up all of those with being an actual radio host? Right now, there's a low demand for being radio hosts. This is a dying field. Using the airwaves is a dying field because of the internet. The internet is really making radio obsolete. So before considering getting a degree in radio or broadcast communications with the hope that you might be a radio host or even a news anchor or a TV anchor, perhaps you should consider skipping college and starting a YouTube channel or a podcast. The best idea might be to use the internet to build your own brand and garner an audience rather than trying to get a degree in radio. Number 7, creative writing. Who doesn't like to write? Well, some people don't like to write. I would like to say that yours truly would love to be able to isolate himself at times in the quiet or even staring at nature and hear the birds chirping and just write a cool novel, or especially in my case, I love to write nonfiction. So if you have dreams of being a successful author and you love to write poetry or short stories or novels, perhaps you're considering a degree in creative writing. But, there may be jobs available for technical writing, but not necessarily creative writing. Do we really see job openings that demand a creative writer to write something that you just simply want to write? Usually, if there are job openings for writers, you're going to be told what to write. So no one is really going to pay you a salary just to do creative writing. And when you really think about it, no one really needs a college degree to develop writing skills. You don't really need a college degree to write a novel. And no one is going to read your novel just because you put your master's degree in creative writing in the bio on the back. My suggestion, if you're considering creative writing as a college degree, you might want to consider majoring in something else. But then you might think, but I like writing. Why can't I major in writing in college? Well, I think there's a better solution to getting a degree in college in creative writing and once again amassing a hefty student loan that you might not be able to find a good enough job to pay it back. Why not check out writers' conferences in your state or in your local area? You could pay a few $100s for a 3-day writers' conference. At the Writers' Conference, you could meet successful authors, you can meet literary agents, you can even pitch a book proposal to a literary agent there, maybe more than one. You can meet editors and get an editing contract. You can also meet small publishers who are looking for authors. So think about this. Paying a few $100s for a writer's conference versus paying tens of thousands of dollars for a college degree that doesn't really give you any credentials. And I would like to argue, because I myself have been to a writer's conference and I learned a whole lot there about writing, than I believe anyone would learn in a creative writing degree at college. You learn just as much, if not more, in continuing sessions and workshops at a writer's conference. And guess what? You learn from successful people who practice what they preach. What are the odds of learning from actual authors who make a living writing when you're getting a creative writing degree at college? You might end up being taught by a graduate of the degree who just goes on to teach creative writing, so you could end up having a washed-up college graduate teaching the classes. Now, let me ask you, which would you prefer? Successful people, successful authors who know what they're doing and they've actually honed the craft and they've sold books telling you what works, or would you like someone who all they know about creative writing are the classes that they're teaching you? Moving on to number 6, exercise science. Are you health conscious? Well, good for you. Really, that's good for you. Everyone should be health conscious if at all possible. Now let's ask the all-important question. Do you really need a college degree in this? Does it translate into a job? Is anyone going to employ you merely for the knowledge of exercise science? Well, let's think of the possibility of what you might get hired to do. There are jobs available for this type of degree, but it might not exactly be what you're thinking. You could be a sports coach at a high school or college, or you could even go to be a trainer at a gym, but the salary is not really very good for this. So ask yourself the question, do you really need a college degree in exercise science to be a trainer at a gym? No, you just really need to be good at lifting weights and doing exercises. In fact, if you keep yourself in good physical condition in the gym, you could go on to be a trainer at the gym if you know how to use the equipment, you know how to teach a good exercise curriculum. You do not need a degree in exercise science, and you certainly do not need to be paying back the student loan with the low salary you'd get for being a trainer at a gym or being a sports coach at a school. Number 5, music. Let's ask the question again. Does music really need a college degree? I would like to suggest that your ability to succeed in music really depends more on personal talent and practice than it really does actually getting a degree. I would suggest that if you really want to learn how to play an instrument, private lessons in that instrument might be cheaper than going to college. Now, you might say, well, college will get me a degree. Private lessons don't get me a piece of paper with my name on it. Well, do you really need that piece of paper with your name on it? Perhaps, but probably not for a job in music. And private lessons really are, kind of expensive, but they're cheap compared to the expense of going to college. So there are very few available salary jobs for simply playing music. If you're not a songwriter and you just want to perform Bach or Beethoven, then there are not very many available jobs for doing that just pay you a salary. There will certainly be a lot of competition and very little chance of contract with a recording company. Even for songwriters, there's lots of competition, and every songwriter's dream is to land that contract with a big recording company. But that really depends on raw, unadulterated, unique talent, and really does not depend at all on having a degree with your name on it. So what are the best sources of income for being into music? Well, you could teach private lessons, or you can tutor a classroom. You'd probably make more money tutoring your own classroom rather than teaching in a school as part of a school curriculum. You could also provide work-for-hire services for radio or podcast jingles, and I'm going to get into that more in a future episode. But really, it is not entirely necessary to get a college degree to make a career out of music or to build your skills in music. Number 4, liberal arts or humanities. Oh, what's not to like about the noble liberal arts and the noble humanities? It is a very wide range of skills that you dip your toes in. It will make you very well-rounded. You will be a jack of quite a few trades, but, you will actually be a master of very few. So with a liberal arts degree or a humanities degree, you really don't get any specific marketable skill for a specific job. You might make a better barista or a better stock clerk than your companions who don't have a college degree or a degree in liberal arts. But if that's not what you're gunning for, then you might want to rethink getting that kind of a degree. There are lots of competition for any of the jobs available that you might want to try to land with a liberal arts degree, but with not any specific skills, you might do better than high school, but, given that you won't be applying very many specific skills, that depends on you to try to learn those skills after getting your degree. And you will face lots of competition for positions that don't require heavily technical skills. Now, I will say that many entrepreneurs, many very wealthy entrepreneurs, have degrees in liberal arts. This may be necessary for them to succeed, or is it? But not all liberal arts graduates become successful entrepreneurs. We need to keep that in mind. If someone's going to defend a degree in liberal arts by pointing to Steve Jobs or other very successful entrepreneurs, it's not that every person who gets a liberal arts degree is going to be a Steve Jobs. There are far too many statistics of liberal arts graduates who have to struggle trying to find a good paying job that will pay back the student loans. Number 3, advertising. Well, once again, the bottom degrees here have lots of competition. You're going to find lots of your fellow college students in college getting a degree in advertising. So how do you succeed with this? Well, you certainly need to stand out from the crowd. If you can't figure out how to stand out from the crowd, it's going to be difficult for you to find a job. College courses often in advertising teach techniques that are decades old. Now, if you've ever seen the sitcom from the 1960s called Bewitched, you remember that Samantha's husband, Darren Stevens, the guy with the big ears, Dick York, the character that Dick York played as Darren Stevens worked in an advertising firm, and it really looked like a lot of fun, and designing graphics on paper and coming up with slogans for companies, and it looked like they do pretty well every time they would just find that perfect slogan to pitch to the client and make more money for the company. But does that really how advertising works in the 21st century? So keep that in mind. Really, if you're determined to get a degree in advertising, you might want to do your research even at the course catalogs of the college and make sure that they're going to teach you techniques that work in the 21st century. Digital marketing would be better training than simply courses designed to make you draw on paper and come up with slogans. Number 2, fine arts, various forms of fine arts. So once again, as we're getting toward the worst degree for getting a job, at least according to careerschoolnow.org, most of these degrees, there are lots of students who major in these programs, but there are very few jobs waiting for the students who graduate from them. There is lots of competition in the fine arts field, and so with all that talent there looking for a job, you really, really seriously need to stand out. Now, you might think that you stand out, but unless you've met all of your competition and really studied them, you might not stand out from the crowd as well as you might hope. So unless you're Bob Ross, no one is going to pay you a salary to do oil painting. So the more generic and eclectic the degree, such as, a generic fine arts degree, the fewer the marketable skills you might learn. You might appreciate a lot of speeches, a lot of music, a lot of studio arts, but unless you really hone your skills to be very specific and very refined, the fewer marketable skills you have to land a decent job in this field. And once again, for the fine arts, A degree in fine arts cannot replace raw, unique talent. Some people have that talent and don't need a degree. Other people, even getting a degree, it doesn't really help them compete with someone who may not have even graduated high school. So, with a fine arts degree, you might find yourself looking at a local theater for acting positions or other performing positions, and if you land one of these, great, but that's not going to pay you very much. If you have the hopes that getting a fine arts degree will land you a position in Hollywood, well, the odds are, as we say, are not really in your favor. Number 1, and drum roll please, archaeology. Remember Indiana Jones from the 1980s? Anyone who, if you're going to get a degree in archaeology, you need to keep in mind that Indiana Jones is not what archaeology is all about. According to douglasarcheology.wordpress.com, there are about 300 job openings estimated over the next 10 years for positions in archaeology. Also, according to this website, there are about 92,000 people who hold a degree in archaeology. Now, compared to anthropology, a related field, there are not as many degrees in archaeology as there are in anthropology, but 92,000 degrees is proportionately a lot more than the 300 job openings estimated over the next 10 years. So if you graduate with a degree in archaeology, your chances of landing a position, a job that actually uses what you learned, will not be very good. You could end up teaching archaeology at a university, but remember, there will be a high enough supply of graduates in archaeology and not enough demand to give them all a teaching position. And so if you land such a teaching position, it's still going to be low pay for that position. If you manage to be lucky, like winning the lottery, and end up with an actual job doing archaeology, you'll probably find yourself dusting off old relics and not making much more than you would make teaching archaeology at a university. So this was a list of the top, or really the bottom, majors for jobs according to careerschoolnow.org. Every list of bottom majors is going to vary depending on the website, but the same concept is evidence. If you really think about it, all of these majors are in liberal arts, social sciences, and generalized education. Often these type of things show up. Fine arts, liberal arts, and sometimes, early childhood education is another one that shows up. Just basically general education, something that trains you to teach a general curriculum and not specific skills. But none of these majors in this list, or in really any of the other lists, require high-level knowledge that uses mostly the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is all about concrete analytical skills in math, computation, statistics, or technical design. None of these majors require a lot of use of the left side of your brain, and most of the high-paying jobs that give you a high salary to be an employee utilize the left hemisphere of the brain. Most of these majors use the right hemisphere. And although we need the right hemisphere and the world benefits from a lot of the information and the actual activity from all of these degrees, the world really doesn't need degrees in these majors. So there you have it. The 10 worst college majors for jobs. Stay tuned for a later episode when we're going to talk about the 10 best majors for jobs.
Thank you for waking up with Truthspresso. Good morning, and God bless your day.
Hey friends, Daniel Minnick here again. If you liked waking up to this episode of Truthspresso, I would really appreciate it if you would rate it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whatever application you use to listen to Truthspresso.